Hello and welcome to the Sankey Sliding Center in Sochi, Russia, the 2014 Winter Olympic venue and also the playground for the 9th and final FIBT Wieseman Women's Bobsleigh World Cup of the season. Well, hello everybody and welcome to Russia. I'm Martin Haven. Sitting alongside me is Canadian Olympian Helen Upperton. And Helen, this is always a new challenge for drivers, a brand new track, and of course this one is so important for next year.
It is. It's 1,500 meters long, 17 corners. There are 3 uphill sections of this track and 3 very challenging straightaways with corners and bends in them. That's going to make this track extremely technical and very challenging for the pilots. The start is quite short. The athletes have to load. It descends very quickly. Long straightaway. They've been having a lot of trouble going straight here into this very small, abrupt corner 1. Corner 2 heading the same direction to the right. Into a nice corner 3. It's very important to set up this straightaway. Corner 4 is going the same direction. It's another left-hand turn. Corner 5 is a 3 pressure corner. There's 3 waves. The exit is very difficult. We've seen lots of sleds skidding and hitting the walls coming out of corner 5. Corner 6, 7's really high, and it heads down the straightaway with corner 8 included in that straightaway because the straightaway is bending to the left. That's corner 9 into corner 10, another 3 pressure corner. These corners are extremely technical. Minimizing the waves is very important. This is corner 10, 11, another uphill section. Into 14, a huge uphill into corner 15, 3 right-hand corners in the bottom of the track. This is corner 16, and the finish curve here, double pressure corner 17, and up and across the finish line.
Well, as you say, it is unique in that some tracks have flat areas with a tiny uphill grade at the end, maybe, but not 3 different times. And we've seen already dramatically how much speeds drop off when you do go uphill and make a mistake. Kaillie Humphries, the world champion, the Olympic champion, is our World Cup points leader. And she now is within a finish here in these 19 sleds of being our Crystal Globe winner as well at the end of the season, the World Cup champion. Sandra Kiriasis, Kathleen Martini, and Schneider Hengster giving chase. And some very interesting names. Esme Kamphuis, 5th in the rankings. Christina Hengster, Fabienne Meyer, all up in the top 5, 6, 7 positions. So some young drivers really coming of age this season. But we expect the established superstars to be setting the pace here. And there's one other element that we need to talk about. You mentioned it right at the beginning of the run, and that is the start area. Start is going to determine a lot about what happens down the track. The air is pretty mild, just 9 degrees, but the ice is good and cold. So who are we expecting to really blast out of the blocks?
Well, we have a dynamite combination of Elana Meyers from the USA 1 sled. She's the strongest starting pilot in the field, and it's a very strong field. And she has Asia Evans behind her, who is arguably the most powerful brakeman in the women's competition right now. I expect them to do a very, very incredible push time, probably low teens. We might even see them get below a 5:10.
Well, of course, this is a brand new track. This is the first ever World Cup race here, so all the records are to be established, and the woman who will set the track record without any doubt will be Fabienne Meyer, because she is the first woman to cross the line. It may then be broken. Schneider was quick in training, so Sandra Kiriasis and Kathleen Martini, her German teammates, who follow up in quick succession. Top 10 in the World Cup rankings go into a random draw, and yet again, Kaillie Humphries down in the bottom half of that top 10, 7th position, but the track will hold up well enough for her for that not to be an issue. 19 sleds here from a dozen nations, and that means that nobody will fail to make the cut as long as they make it safely across the finish line at the end of the first of our 2 heats. And although it's a little bit of a kind of an end-of-term feeling, everybody's concentration here is less perhaps on the World Cup and more on the information they can log, which will pay off next year in the Winter Games.
Yep, 2 weeks of training, 2 weeks on the ice here, and the results on this World Cup aren't as important as what's going to happen in next February at the 2014 Sochi Olympics.
Let's get the final World Cup race of the women's bobsleigh season underway. We're at the brand new Olympic facility in this gargantuan 5-story, 100-foot-high start building. The single most impressive bobsleigh track building you will ever see, unless someone else knows different in Korea, perhaps. To kick off the action then, Switzerland's Fabienne Meyer and Elisabeth Graf. Fabienne, 7th in the World Cup rankings, within a whisker of challenging Kaillie Humphries for victory at home in Whistler just before Christmas. What can she do here? Well, a start record is established at 5.36 seconds.
As you mentioned, though, this is a new track. No records have been set yet. They haven't hosted a race, so we're going to see records fall throughout the entire competition in both the first and the second heat.
Well, one of the things that is vital is to keep the speed alive early on. She's got a little bit of a skid going there out of 3.
Corner 5 has been really technical and very challenging for all these drivers. This straightaway has been she's actually having a great run so far. We've seen Fabienne actually really consistent over the last week. Good runs, nice clean straightaways, and she's putting together a great heat right now.
Oh, and that's a painful skid because she's starting to go uphill there now. Uphill out of 11 through 12 and 13 is that little straight. And again, over the track, it crosses over itself and sticks her head right under the cowl to take the new track record at 58.35. That may last no more than a couple of minutes, I would venture.
The ice conditions must be pretty good tonight. 129.4 was her bottom speed. That's the fastest velocity we've seen all week in the 2 weeks we've been here training, so that's a good run for her. There was a small mistake in the bottom of the track from 11 to 14. She had a skid and a hit. You can see here she taps and a slide coming down the straightaway. This is the exit of corner 11. You're going to see she gets a little bit of a skid. And this is very important because out of 14 is a very steep uphill section.
Well, she actually, if you watch the front runner tip, she actually drives the sled into that skid. She creates it by trying to keep too right too soon. Fabienne Meyer has set the new track record. Anja Schneider-Heinze and Stephanie Schneider are destined surely to break both start and track records. 5:36 is the mark, 5:31 is the new start record.
Going to need her to see really nice straight lines here coming around corner 3, a nice parallel early entrance into corner 4, and this is that triple pressure corner 5 with a very technical exit. The girls have really been trying to dial in this exit. That was pretty nice. We always see some small skidding and instability.
Huge height in corner 7, and that's vital to keep that speed alive. Oh, and that was very close to dangerous.
Rough exit out of corner 9 into 10, building a lot of pressure, and she's already dropped behind Fabienne Meyer by 0.05 of a second. Good straightaway into 14, and this is a huge uphill. You can tell from the camera angle, it's an unbelievable portion of the track, and a skid into 16 as well. Wow.
To get down in one piece will be a job well done, because she was close to wrecking it there at the top of the track. 58.61, she is in second place at the moment. I'm afraid with that has gone any chance of a win here, surely, for Anja Schneider-Heinze. We haven't seen too many problems at the exit of corner 9 to that magnitude in training. It's usually been the entry of corner 14. This is corner 7, as you mentioned during the run. That's a very high line, but she cuts the exit off. She gets pushed a little bit over, but not too bad. This is that corner 9 exit. You can see her climbing with pressure, coming off that corner with 2 runners, barely still touching the ice. She's going to hit the wall, going into corner 10, which is a big 3 pressure curve. Well, similar mistake was made by Elana Meyers in yesterday's training. She brought it down too early, and the pressure wasn't done with her. Pushed her right back up the wall and almost rolled that German sled. So next up, Sandra Kiriasis and Franziska Bertels. It's quicker to say what Sandra has not won in her career rather than list all the trophies and medals she has won. Multiple World Cup champion, 8 consecutive years she won the overall title in women's bobsled. What about Sandra? She doesn't have the biggest start in the field, Helen, but she can really drive.
She's been flying in training. You're right. The start is her weak point now. The progress of women's bobsleigh has been moving forward so quickly. We've had great athletes move into the field, and the Germans are falling a little bit behind at the start. 5:38. She's not quite as fast as our best starter so far, but she is one of the best pilots in the field, usually the most consistent, and she's been flying in training.
Top speed 73.5 from Anja Schneider-Heinze off a much quicker start. But, ooh, again, little skid. She's just trying to straighten it up too early out of 5. Well, you either take the skid or you hit the wall. There seems to be no clean way out of 5 at all, but she's got the lead.
And she's got a nice exit and a nice straightaway from 7 all the way through corner 9, and a much better 9-10 than Anya did. And this is another very important straightaway. She gets through it clean and up the hill. A late entry into corner 15, which is going to give her a little bit more height in 15 than she wants. Still 1700ths in the lead.
129 kilometers an hour. That's great speed and a new track record for Sandra Kiriasis. And since I came into this sport 12 years ago, I have said that I don't know how many times, less frequently in recent years. But there is no question, when the chips are down, this woman really knows how to drive. Now, we were shown a speed of 126 kilometers an hour out of corner 15, which is 10 Ks faster than anyone else, which I've got to question, but there's no question the driving skills are still there.
The start time a little bit slower than she's going to need to really be competitive with the fastest pushing teams in the field, but a great run. She's a 10th ahead of Fabienne Meyer, which goes to show how great of a run that Swiss pilot had to be. Only a 10th. You can see stuff flying off the sled as she's coming up that uphill section into curve 15.
Yeah. Well, there is Sandra. And next up is the third of our 3 German sleds, Kathleen Martini. Kathleen won on home ice in Altenburg in Saxony. She carries the green colours of Saxony, looking down there in the bare interior of your bobsled. It is resin and steel and built for speed, not for comfort.
And mismatching socks. I wonder if that's a lucky charm.
Yeah, got dressed in the dark. 5:42 the start. And she gives away time at the top, but can she find it further down the track?
73.3 kilometers an hour, pretty good velocity. Kathleen Martini, again, very consistent in training, good speeds on the final day of training and really good runs. Nice entry, nice corner 5. That's the best corner 5 to 6 we've seen so far. High line in 7, this straightaway is very important, and she does it. She nails it.
Only 800s behind Sandra Kiriasis. She started 600 slower, 124.8. Well, in that case, Sandra's 126 looks utterly believable. These are 2 really good drives from Kiriasis and now from Martini as well.
Better uphill transition from 14 to 15 for Kathleen Martini. She's closing.
She's got top speed, 130.1, and it's 400ths of a second between the 2 top German sliders. Game on for Christoph Langen's girls.
Really?
Just above them, look at the lights. There are up to 9 rows wide of lights every inch of this track. That's a mile of ice, 9 rows of strip lights. How many lights alone are in this place?
It's good. It means the time of day of the race is going to be, it won't matter to the pilots. It's never going to change their visibility. You can see here, this is a really nice exit. She's going to brush this wall, but a parallel hit, and parallel hit against a wall is much better than a sideways skid down the straightaway.
Wow. She looks pretty beat up. But not too bad a run at all for Kathleen Martini. Janina Tischer looking after her. Next up then is Jasmine Fenlator with Lolo Jones. Now Lolo gashed her hand very badly a few days ago. The trucks they use to shift the sleds here are nowhere near the right size to match the dock, and you're humping sleds up and down the whole time. I'm surprised that she's actually feeling fit enough to compete, but that's testimony to how much she wants to be in this business.
A little bit of trouble from corner 2 to 3. She had a little bit too diagonal of a line, but really, really good parallel straightaways here. Tapping a skid coming from corner 5 to 6.
Well, it seems to me that Jazz is right on the edge of control in this sled, and maybe that's just the way she likes to feel it, really floating around.
High exit again from 9 to 10, like we saw Anja Schneider-Heinz do.
Well, I saw her coming out of 11 in the first training run that I watched on Wednesday, and boy, she hit everything on the way down to 14. That was straight and clean, but a big skid out of 14 uphill to 15. 127.4 is not bad speed.
But not even close to our leader so far. Well, our fastest speed so far is over 130 kilometers an hour. So few too many mistakes, couple skids, couple taps down the straightaway. She sat in the sled the last day of training. She's suffering with some back problems. It's getting near the end of the season. These girls are struggling to stay in shape and in good health. She slides off of corner 5, tapping the wall. Nose pointing into corner 6 makes the transition really rough. You can see the pressure building here at the exit. It's going to send her over into the left wall. It's really important and very challenging on this new track to keep those sleds straight and off the walls and the straightaways.
Well, there is Jasmine from Ewing, New Jersey. Next up, Esme Kamphuis, the girl who lies 5th in the World Cup standings. 3 times this year she's been in 4th place. The last time in Königssee, Bavaria, she was 1/100th of a second away from a medal, the closest you can be without actually winning one. And she is now starting to get really quite cross that she is so close and it just keeps slipping out of her fingers. So will she be able to produce something here and hold that orange pip that keeps spitting away from her? She's got Willie Canis, the X-Track cyclist, on the back of the sled.
Esme, the last 2 seasons, has really come through as a force in the women's field. Always close to medal, podium performances. 5:39, one of the slower starts so far, but 47.9 is a pretty good velocity, which means the brakeman had a good load into the sled.
Well, she's only 1/100th of a second slower than our current leader, Sandra Kiriasis, so she's in there close enough. 600s back.
Good exit of corner 5, nice straightaway, keeping a good transition to corner 6. We've seen a lot of sleds skid there. High line in 7. We'll see if she jumps a little bit into corner 9, which we've seen a lot of sleds do through training.
Yeah, the sled gets light just as you start to enter into the corner.
Good exit, corner 10, another triple pressure corner, another long straightaway. She gets through it clean.
Great speed, 1:24.6, which is 77.5 miles an hour and still accelerating. Wow. 6th position, though, for Esme Kamphuis, 58.74. So the top of the track was good, but it drifted away a little on the way down.
Really clean run. Not a lot of big technical visible issues in the track, but just not that fast of a run, which we see sometimes. Obviously, it's a new track. Everyone's trying to figure out what runners will work best in the conditions. And again, she had one of the slowest starts. And in bobsleigh, there's 3 components to winning races. You have to have a fast push, you have to have a great drive, and you have to have the material that's going to get you down the track as fast as possible.
And there's another factor that might be coming into play, and that's the weather. It's been very warm over the last week, 10 days that there's been training here, but it's been dry. It is now starting to rain, and there's a bit of wind behind it as well. We're up at the top, Helen, in this big start house. There's loads, you can see on the right-hand side there, all those individual sheets. They were blowing around substantially. Now, it seems to have dropped a little, the wind now. But this covered track, the athletes won't know it's raining until they step out. Here is our World Cup champion-elect, surely, Kaillie Humphries, our reigning world and Olympic champion, Kaillie Humphries, with the find of Canada's season, without a question. Chelsea Valois on the back of this sled. Came into the program late, just on an off chance, picked up the phone and said, can I come and try out? Boy, did they like what they saw. 5:26, perhaps no surprise, a new start record for the Canadian, and that is a 10th quicker nearly than Anja Schneider-Heinze.
Actually, I think they're going to make a big improvement on the second push. It looked a little awkward. Chelsea actually lost contact with both brake handles as she transitioned from the falling point of the push to the actual driving phase. Kaillie, again, very fast in training, has been just a powerhouse this season. High line there. Corner 7, nice straightaway, though, all the way to corner 9. This is that big triple pressure corner 10 here, and she's got a good run going. She's 400ths in the lead. Another very important straightaway. She touches the wall, a bit of a late entry, and again, late into the big uphill corner 15, and she took a very high line there, and she's dropped behind. The mistakes are coming here in the bottom portion of the track.
And she didn't have the speed of Sandra Kiriasis at either of the fast speed traps down at the bottom, but she's 800ths of a second behind, and that's the kind of odds that Kaillie Humphries thrives on. She can come back from that. Well, she missed out, courtesy of Sandra Kiriasis, on a chance for the triple trophy, the €100,000 prize for anyone who wins in Königssee Eagles and here in Sochi this year. Sandra Peter in Eagles, bringing that run to an end.
This is corner 7. Nope, my mistake. That's not corner 7. You can see that really high line. That's corner 15. She went in a little bit late, really high pressure. Lots of pressure takes her too high. It makes you actually go uphill a little bit more than you want to, heading down through these triple right-hand corners, 15, 16, 17, and across the finish line. She lost all her time in the bottom part of the track. The top was really nice.
Next up, Jamie Greubel and Katie Ebeling, the first of 2 American sleds now towards this latter end of the top 10. You can see spots of water on the camera lens, so it is blowing in through those sheets at the top there and down onto the track. 2-minute hold. Now, what's this all about? You could just see the jury members interrupting the girls. The sled was already on the ice. That is very unusual that that is allowed to happen once the sled has been called into position, because then the start procedure has started. So, is it debris in the track? Those couple of bits of tape we saw were ignored. In the men's skeleton race, a huge slew of ice that was in the bottleneck was ignored for a dozen sleds. No indication as yet as to why the track is being held and whether that is a track call or a jury call.
And like you said, very strange to make a call like that once the sled has been flipped down onto the ice. Jamie Greubel, a pretty inexperienced pilot. Now she's got a break. She was ready to go. She was standing at the line. Clothes were off. Speed suits, the only thing left. They were ready to go down. So maintaining her focus and still keeping that peace of mind is going to be really important.
Sepp Plotzer, the head of competition for the FIBT, and he is walking back down towards the exit of 11, isn't it? So something in 12:13.
2 minutes.
I think there's 2 minutes. 2-minute warning there from Lorenzo, who's the head of the jury. Yeah. It's leaves. It looked like a little bit of tape originally that had come off one of the bales, one of the bumpers on the side of the sled, but it is leaves. Well, this is ironic because they allowed a dozen sleds to go through a big punch of ice right at the top of the track in the men's skeleton race, when quite plainly it was right on the running line.
Yeah, wind picking up, like you said.
Yeah. Well, you know, we're on a mountainside, and it's a mixture of coniferous and deciduous trees, and so you saw those were deciduous leaves rather than pine needles, which is, of course, what fell into the track, and some track workers' gloves as well that Sepp has spotted. Well, the wind is gusting around here.
And the rain, you can see it now on the TV screen. This weather has turned from quite a nice mild evening to some...
Well, we were forecast rain tomorrow, and it is arriving a little bit early. We're 4 stories up in our commentary position. There's wind and rain on the... Well, there's rain on the window, and there you can see it. Yeah, apparently that's rain, folks. It hasn't rained yet in 10 days here, so this is going to be... Again, Helen Upton, although the track is pretty much covered, the shades may well need to be drawn down, the covers that will stop the water coming in on the track. But it's the change in humidity as much as anything else that may affect the track surface. And this is where the guys that run the refrigeration plant here are now going to start learning, hopefully, about what changeable weather does. Sandra Kiriasis is our race leader from Kathleen Martini. Olympic champion Kaillie Humphries is in 3rd. Top 3 covered by 8/100ths of a second. As on the ice, in the BMW sled, recently driven by Stephen Holcomb, is Jamie Greubel of the USA with Katie Ebeling behind her. And she's really taken to this sled in training. She likes it. Well, Holcomb found the feel, he said, very different, very flighty, very nervous, and not as responsive as what he was used to. But clearly, Jamie Greubel is enjoying whatever it's giving him.
Yeah, 5:35 push time, 47.9 kilometers an hour, good velocity. She's only 1/100th back from our leader, Sandra Kiriasis, right now. A skid and a hit from 5 to 6 and a very late entry into corner 6. We should see her drop some more time.
Low line there, about a sled lower than most others.
Yeah, you can see her catching pressure at the exit of both corner 7 and corner 9 through that triple pressure corner 10 and into this straightaway here.
12 and 13, she hits off 12. Climbs over the track outrun. You drop all the way down. You do basically a 360, and then the track finishes underneath itself there. Half a second back, 58.66 side for Jamie Greubel. Well, speed wasn't bad at the bottom, 128 kilometers an hour.
Yeah, good speed and a little bit too much driving, I would say. The low lines in the corners is what creates pressure at the exit, and that's what you can see holding her up. This was not a bad exit. She drives a little bit too aggressively off of the corner and then sends her into the left wall. You can see it's a double bunk, parallel hit. Not a huge mistake, but enough for her to lose time.
Well, normally, after the first 10 sleds, we'd have a 2-minute break in proceedings, but with the weather turning, we are not going to have that, so we will go with a no-huddle offense all the way through these 19 sleds. And next up...
the powerhouses.
Yeah. Well, what about this? You were suggesting that these girls should get into the teens for their start. The track record is 5.26 at the moment.
They pushed a 19 in training. I'm going to call an 11 in this start. I think if they can get below a 10, it's going to be incredible. They're going to outstart some of the men.
Elana Meyers, Asia Evans, World Championship silver medalist, 5.19. That's what they were pushing in training. A new start record.
5.19, and that's an indication of the track conditions. The track conditions, the weather, the temperature, and the ice all plays a huge part in the speeds, the velocity, the times, and obviously the push times as well.
So now she's got the start. All she needs to do, and we say all, is carry that speed down the track. Better than Sandra Kiriasis, an Olympic and world champion many times over.
Another high line from 9 to 10. She struggled in that transition all through training. Not too big of a mistake. Attack from 11 to 14 and up the hill, nice and parallel into corner 15. She's putting together a pretty good run.
800s in front to 800s of a second behind. 128.2 is still very good speed. Can she get it at the line? No. 58.33. She is in 4th place. 1700s of a second back.
That's probably one of Elana's better runs all week that she's had. She's struggled in some of the curves, and like we saw at World Championships, just putting together her best runs on the day that it counts the most. She slipped a little bit off the push bar, the pilot, with her right hand, and you can see they've got to load very early the grooves, and very abruptly here you can see this frozen picture. The grooves are ending right there. If they're not sitting still, push bar down, they're going to have a small skid. You can see her veering to the left side of the track. She's trying to regain control of the sled. Pressure building here at the exit. We've seen this happen actually predominantly with the American sleds, also with Anja Schneiderheinz from 9 to 10. A lot of pressure, setting them a little bit too early into curve 10, but not a bad run for Elana.
Not a bad run at all. Around 12 of those corners were A-OK. Well, next up, Christina Hengster of Austria and Inga Versen, her brakewoman. Christina's been having a really standout season as well. Only one time this year has she been outside the top 10. Best result, 4th place in Lake Placid, the season opener.
Again, a problem.
And hits the wall and hits it hard, and that throws so much ice into the track. Because the ice is so soft, it's not just a few sprinkles, it is like 2 major snowballs, and she is skidding all over the place.
Yeah, big mistake from 2 to 3. She's trying to regain composure after that massive mistake on the load. You could see how long it took her to get her arms in the sled. She didn't have her D-rings in her hand. She hit the wall twice extremely hard. She's going to be way behind our leaders at the bottom.
Now you've got to question whether in the Olympic Games the grooves will stop just as early as they do, because it's very long run after that. And maybe this is all part of the Russian strategy, so they're used to these explosive starts and the rest of the world may not be.
Good exit there from 14 uphill into curve 15, but the damage has already been done. 1.25 seconds behind is a lifetime for Christina Hengster. She's much better pilot than this run shows, and that was because of that mistake at the top. You can't come back for a mistake that huge in bobsleigh.
Well, if that had been the only mistake, she'd still be in the top half dozen, but it was compounded by a dozen others. There is Oluseyi proudly, cavalierly saying she's only once been out of the top 10, and immediately she sinks like a stone. But this is where the trouble comes. Watch her hands. Is she in control? No.
And
isn't even sat down.
Yeah, and as the brakeman loads, this is the big hit here. She sends across in front of the luge ramp, the sled going airborne, skidding into one.
That's the sort of hit that pops ribs.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. And a skid here down this straightaway from 11 to 14. A lot of mistakes in the track, but hard to come back after you've thrown yourself off that much at the start.
Inga Versen smiling, so clearly not in too much pain. Next up, Paula Walker of Great Britain. She's got Jill Cook behind her. Paula, junior world champion, and Jill, the world champion in 2009, behind Nikki Minicello as a brakewoman. Again, their season started with such a bang. 6th position in Lake Placid and in Whistler, rounds 1 and 3. And since then, she has struggled to get back into a top half-dozen finish. And to end the season on a real high with that kind of result again would definitely help keep that Union flag flying. She gets in plenty of time, and a 5.38 getaway. Not going to worry the Americans, but it keeps her in contention. Same start speed as Sandra Kiriasis.
Chatting a bit with Paula Walker and some of the other pilots at the top. I asked her what she thinks about the track. They're really enjoying the track. It's a great venue. It's a pretty safe track. There haven't been a lot of crashes considering it's new, and it's very technical. It's very hard to go fast. The uphill sections, the straightaways with the curves in them, it's very difficult to keep the speed and to not lose the speed.
Well, the other thing that I noticed is that the sleds sound like a bag of spanners on this track. Even the tightest, best put together, are rattling like they're 20 years old, because the surface of the ice, well, the ice crews here are not experienced in how to keep it smooth, and it is really corrugated.
She had a bit of a tap from 11 to 14, and again from 15 to 16, some small problems, but not a bad run. 58.90. She's over 7 tenths behind our leader, sitting in 10th position.
She's going to be disappointed to be 10th. She was, I'm sure, hoping to end with a bit more of a bang at the end of the season. Still one more run to go.
You can see these two here powering it out of the start. She gets a nice early load, which is obviously very important after what we just saw happened with the Austrian team. Christina Hengster hitting the luge barricade on the right-hand side of the track. Early into corner 10, we're seeing a lot of problems with the women from that 9-10 transition. They're staying on curve 9 too long. This is corner 10, the triple pressure corner, just rising and falling slightly with the waves.
Well, we get down to 12th in the start draw before we even get our first Russian sled. And that tells you everything you need to know about the current state of Russian women's bobsledding. Lots of noise, lots of support. Nothing in comparison to the cacophony that is going to fill this cathedral-like start area 12 months from now. But in what position will Russian women's bobsledding be then? This is Olga Stulneva with Margarita Ishmailova, two former track and field athletes.
Olga, 4x100 meter Olympic medalist for Russia as well. Great athletes. Inexperienced pilots have been struggling in the field, but Olga's actually had some very good training times, sitting in top 6 ranked training positions. We haven't seen that very often from the Russian Women's Federation.
Well, one of the things that the Russians do not have that the Americans have in spades is speed at the start, and that has got to change if they're to even contemplate challenging for medals. Saw Victoria Tokovaya, who's now retired since Whistler, at the top of the track, and you know what? I thought she could always start close to Kiriasis. She could probably still be Russia's #1 woman slider.
But 14 hundredths behind our leader is very good for Olga, and this is a very nice, clean run from this Russian pilot. Skid there from 11 to 14. We're going to see how she handles this uphill section. Really good transition into 15, and again, parallel early line into curve 16. You can tell the Russians have been getting a lot of time on this track, a lot of runs. That was a nice, consistent heat. Over 6 tenths behind our leader, but a good heat for this pilot.
All right, so the rest of the World Cup field have had a dozen trips down in training. And she's had who knows how many more, and yet she's still 6 tenths back.
This is that skid that was produced from the exit of corner 11. She slid off the corner, tapped the wall, trying to regain control of the sled in the straightaway. They went a little bit far up the braking stretch. You can see them trying to get it back down onto the finish dock.
Which is odd because the braking stretch is about half a mile long. It's the single biggest braking stretch I think I've ever seen in my life, and it just curves on up the hill there. Well, next up, Caroline Spahni and Ariane Walser of Switzerland. And Caroline Spahni, the second of the Swiss girls, didn't do the North American swing. She stayed racing in Europe like Beat Hefty, getting up to speed on the Europa Cup circuit. And her best result came in Königssee, Bavaria. She finished in 6th place and 10th place in the World Championships in what was a really big field in St. Moritz. That's got to give her a real boost of confidence as well.
Caroline Spahni actually surpassing Fabienne Meyer at the Swiss Championships to be Swiss 1 at the time. She was the #1 ranked pilot, and it's mostly due to the start. She's got a pretty good start and a good velocity. 48.1 is a good push velocity on this track.
Well, like all the big starters in the field, she is a former brakewoman, like Kaillie Humphries, like Anja Schneider-Heinzer, like Elana Meyers, who has converted into driving.
Although we saw from Elana Meyers a 5:19 start and the Swiss team only a 5:33, and that gap is going to have to close for people to be competitive at the Olympics next year.
Well, again, with Meyers, she is an equal part of a very powerful combination, and it may well be that Caroline Spahni has not got a brakewoman who's as powerful as she is.
Good uphill straightaway, middle parallel line, good corner 15. She's 3/10 back right now.
Top 6 run. She started 4th. She's in 6th at the moment. 1:28.9 is very good speed. She's showing the Russians how this track should be driven. You know, this is a girl who's been, who in Vancouver was a brakewoman. She's been driving for 2 seasons, and she's showing the Russians quite comfortably the way home into a top 6 run.
This is a nice run here, and again curve 9 causing problems for these women. Pressure building at the exit, flopping off, and then an early entry into that triple pressure corner 10.
Well, Fabienne Meyer in 5th place, just ahead of the girls you can see there. Caroline Spahni in 6th, but it is Sandra Kiriasis who leads the race. Top 3 covered by 8/100ths of a second. So 13 of our 19 sleds are down. Number 14 in the start draw order is Jennifer Ciochetti of Canada, and she's got Kate O'Brien on the back of the Canada 2 sled. And she looked in pretty relaxed mood an hour or so ago when we were up at the top of the track, Helen.
Jenny Ciochetti, typically a pretty relaxed pilot. She was my brakeman for years. She's an incredible athlete, one of the best pushing pilots in the field right now, with Kate O'Brien behind her, 5:35 start time. And again, a young, inexperienced pilot, has only driven for a few seasons, competed as a driver in her first World Championships last year because she was a brakeman for Kaillie Humphries, winning gold, world champion in Lake Placid in 2012.
She is carrying really good speed. 5th at the start. She's in 7th place at the moment, but only a couple of tenths of a kilometre an hour away from the speed of Kiriasis, the first sled in the woodwork we've seen on 7.
Yeah, that was a hit before corner 7, putting her late in, straight to the roof, taking the roof, sending her down early. She's 3/10 of a second back. Tap down the straightaway into this uphill section, another hit. She's going to lose more time.
Well, so much of this sport is about experience, and experience only comes with years of ice driving, and that's one thing that she does not yet have. That will come. 11th place, 58.76 slide, 300ths of a second in front of Olga Stulneva, the lead Russian, who has now been pushed down to 12th place. So, for her experience, Jennifer Ciochetti also in front of Russia's lead driver.
You can see this is this hit before corner 7, sending her so late into the roof. Ice coming off of the roof and off of the woodwork.
In the cap there, Pierre Luder's watching the action, former Canadian coached these girls. Certainly coached you and Jennifer as drivers, and now he's in charge of the Russian operation. Well, next up in their familiar bright green are the Aussies Astrid Radjenovic and Jana Pittman. Jana, a double world champion in 400 meters hurdles. And she is determined to be in this sport a long while. She's not looking just at Sochi, she's looking at What am I going to be doing going up to Pyeongchang in 2018? So there's a lot of track and field athletes that come in this season. I mean, particularly notable this season, more than I think any other time. And they almost universally are just in love with this sport.
A little bit of a stumble off the block. She's an inexperienced brakeman, but a phenomenal athlete. And like you said, it's getting close to a Winter Olympics. There's a huge push for athletes. Track and field is one of the best feeder sports for brakemen in the sport of bobsleigh.
Well, 100th off the start of our race leader, Sandra Kiriasis, and 1500ths of a second behind at the moment. She's carrying good speed as well.
Taking a high line in that last pressure in corner 5 sends her into the wall before corner 6. It's a mistake we saw a lot of people making in training. Good straightaway from 7 to 9. Pressure at the exit of corner 9 like we've seen so many times. Really cutting that first wave in corner 10, taking a very low line through those 3 pressures.
Well, they are trying to raise money at the moment for a new sled for next season, and ooh, that was a fast, hard take on.
Yeah, jumping into curve 15 with a very early entry. 126.6 is well off our top velocity at the bottom of the track. We've seen over 130 kilometers an hour.
Well, 14th place for the Australians, Astrid Radjenovic and Jana Pittman. And if you find them on Facebook, if you are interested in sponsoring Australia's bobsleigh program into Sochi, late exit there sends her into the wall.
That's that high pressure in corner 5. It's a triple pressure curve. They take a lot of height, and then they hit the wall, and it's going to send them late into corner 6 because the angle that their nose is going, and 6 is another double pressure corner. This is this early entry into 15. You can see her jumping into the curve, head bouncing off the cowling. Few too many mistakes, lost a lot of speed at the bottom of the track.
More noise at the top of the track. In the blue jackets are the athletes, and in the white jackets are the officials, who are supposed to be bipartisan or non-partisan, possibly, but, you know, whatever. Anastasia Tambovtseva is Russia 2. Ludmila Udobkina behind her on the back handles of the Russia 2 sled. Now, let's see if these girls can find themselves a top 10 finish. Anastasia's best result this season, 13th place in Salt Lake City. And are they going to get down into the 5.3 somethings? No, not by some margin, 5:47.
When you compare that to our fastest pushing women's team of 5:19, I mean, in the sport of bobsleigh, races are won and lost by hundredths of a second. That is a lifetime to try to catch up in the track. I mean, virtually impossible with the field becoming more and more competitive as the sport progresses.
Well, when they are giving away nearly a tenth of a second to the might of Australia, even in the starts, then you know that they've got trouble.
It's unfortunate, too. Anastasia is a great pilot. She came from the sport of luge. She's got a great feeling, good hands, and it's usually the start deficit that keeps her behind.
No speed at all, 116 kilometers an hour. That's 6 kilometers an hour. 6, not 6/10, down on the Australians alone. 6/10 of a second back. They're in 13th place, just creeping in front. 128.6, big speed at the bottom. Don't know where she found that from.
Yeah, good speed at the bottom and a really clean bottom portion of the track. The trouble comes from the fact that she's starting so far behind the field, a few mistakes in the top, and it's just too much time to catch up.
So the two Russian sleds, Stulneva and Tambovtseva, tied to the 100th of a second in 12th place. Wow, not much to separate them.
She's running very close to the bar, not able to put very much pressure on that push bar, but in and down, both athletes before the groove's end, keeping them nice and straight, but 5:47 had them so far behind at the start. This is a finish curve, double pressure corner. She had a great bottom velocity, but it just wasn't enough. You run out of track.
So the girls will re-prepare their sled, get her back to the top of the track as we get to the 17th of our 19 sleds. These are the Belgians, Elfje Willemsen and Hannah Marion. Marion, another summer Olympian, come into the Belgian program as a brakewoman.
The Belgian team having some very good training times, good speed in the track, and actually some great runs. I've seen her really, I feel like she's got a really good understanding of the track so far. So we'll see if she can put together 2 consistent heats in this very first test event World Cup here in Sochi.
Got a 5:48 start, just a whisker behind Tambovtseva of Russia. 1800ths away from the lead, 73.2 kilometers an hour, the fastest there at 75.
Tap on the wall out of 5. Late entry into corner 6, small mistake, nice high line in 7. Jumping a little bit into corner 9, but not too bad. Pressure again at the exit of corner 9, and we see the same mistake made over and over by so many of the women's sleds. This straightaway is going to be really important. Tapping the wall a bit too early into 14.
Well, you can rescue your race in this uphill section towards the end of the run. If you you can come out of there in the teens and then get up to 128 kilometers an hour, as we just saw with the Russian sled. Elfje Willemsen behind Paula Walker by 700ths of a second. She's in 14th place. Willemsen in 15th spot. So a battle there already being drawn up for Heat 2.
This is the same curve 9, pressure building at the exit. You can see them hanging on there, and it sends them, it pushes the sled across, sending them a little too early onto corner 10, but corner 10 is a very long curve, 3 pressures, a lot of time to regroup and get back on track.
The Belgians in 15th position, and next up, making only the 4th World Cup start of her career, is Great Britain's Vickie Oluseyi. She started 1 race in St. Moritz last season, and she raced in La Plagne and in Eagles this year as well. So still very much the GB development team, coached by Lee Johnson, with Kelly Denyer behind her. And in fact, Misha McNeil, the junior world champion and junior Olympic medalist bobsled driver, is here this weekend as well, though she's not competing. Pretty nice and early, Helen.
Yeah, I was just going to say, that's a very early load from those drivers, perhaps taking away some of the velocity and some of the time they could have had from taking an extra cycle at that start. That's inexperience. They want to make sure that they get in, get control of the sled before curve 1. Vickie, her very first run on this track, she was alternating runs with Misha McNeil. Her very first run, she had a crash in corner 14, and she's managed to regroup, have some good training time since then. Brand new pilot, very inexperienced. This is so great for her to have these 2 weeks on the track.
Oh my goodness, even higher than Sandra Kiriasis, than Anya Schneider. Was it?
Schneider,
it was Schneider Hengster,
yeah.
Wasn't it? Yeah, not Kiriasis. And now she's got it back under control. The speed will have gone, but Kelly Denny will be clinging to the bottom of the sled, praying.
Catching huge pressure at the exit of corner 9 and again at the exit of corner 10, probably because of a panic oversteer because of that super late entry. 124.3 is almost 6 kilometers off of our fastest speed we saw at the bottom of the track.
Wry smile from coach Lee Johnson. And a 59.60 run from Vickie Oluseyi. They'll breathe a sigh of relief that it came down without the use of the helmets, but you can see that even Vickie's helmet is being banged around.
Yeah, I think that's from the crash she had earlier last week when she started her training. You can see she's way too low in the middle of corner 9, and it's all about the pressure. The pressure is going to hit you at some point in time. It builds towards the exit, sending her really high, and again at the exit of corner 10, she comes off on 2 runners. You're going to see 2 runners airborne for a few meters here. She flops back down onto the straightaway going into curve 11. Bit of a bumpy bottom part of the track, to say the least.
Well, they got away with that by the skin of their teeth. And our final and 19th sled in this first of 2 heats here in Sochi in Russia is another Russian sled. Katerina Kostromina, the 3rd of our Russian athletes, with Yulia Timofeeva behind her. And Kostromina only did the North American races in the World Cup up until Koenigsegg, Bavaria, where she crashed and did not finish. So her last World Cup run, her only one this year, was a DNF. Now 5.47 getaway.
47.3 kilometers an hour, the fastest velocity we've seen going into corner 1, 2 is over 48 kilometers an hour. For me, this Russian Federation for women's bobsleigh, they have to get competitive starts in order for them to make the most of their home track advantage at the Olympics next year in Sochi. They're so far behind heading into corner one, and there's just not enough track to catch up. You're racing against pilots with years of experience like Sandra Kiriasis, Kaillie Humphries, Kathleen Martini.
They don't give much away. You've got to go and take it, and if you're giving away at the start, you will still be giving away at the finish.
And this is an inexperienced pilot. It's not a bad run, but she's so far behind at the start, falling behind even more on the way down the track.
1:26.7. She has pulled in front of Vickie Oluseyi, but then Vickie was nearly over in 9 and 10. 59.23. Well, you know, if we were 4 years out from the games, you would say that all three Russian sleds might have a chance of making improvements to get them into contention. But 12 months away, I don't see how any of these in an Olympic cycle are likely even to get into a top 10 finish.
And technically, there's nothing wrong with the push. They're in good positions. They have good angles. They just don't have the speed. And I think the Russian Federation is probably going to spend a big portion of the summer trying to recruit some new athletes, because the men's federation for Russia is extremely dominant. You have Alexander Zubkov, very competitive field.
Well, experience is counting here more than anything else, and the one who has got the most is at the top of the tree. It is Sandra Kiriasis. She proved with victory in Eagles, the last World Cup race before the World Championships in St. Moritz, that she has still got what it takes. And a year out from the Olympics, here in this test event at Sochi, she leads after the first of our two heats. Is it conceivable that 8 years after her last Olympic gold medal, she could be in the running to win here again in a year's time? Well, she ought to win here first before we call any of that. Kathleen Martini second, Kaillie Humphries third are going to make a real race of this. Elana Meyers, Fabienne Meyer, they are in medal contention as well. Caroline Spahni, probably not so. And Anja Schneider with that near crash in the first heat, that certainly robbed her of a chance to take a medal to round out her season. All 19 sleds made it down. Vickie Oluseyi's and Schneider's by the skin of their teeth maybe, but they will all go in the second heat. And the track workers are learning what it takes to keep a track alive in near positive ice temperatures. You can see the ice breaking up where the runners have been. They will need to address that before our second heat. We'll stay with Helen Upperton and me, Martin Haven, as we come back with all the action from the Sankey Sliding Centre and see whether Sandra Kiriasis can end her season on a high with victory on this Olympic track.